Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Mental Bear. Today we're going to talk about depression and the different types of depression. If you missed last episode, I'll leave a link in the description below and you can go check that out. It's all about the roots of psychology and the people who kind of helped curve psychology into what we know today. Hello, Harry. Depression is what we call an affective disorder. Affective just means mood. So the thing with depression is that everybody tends to get sad sometimes, but the difference between feeling sad sometimes and depression is that depression is debilitating. So before we talk about the different types of depression, we need to discuss what we define as abnormal in psychology. Abnormalities. When we're talking about abnormalities, in psychology, we define something as abnormal when the 3Ds are met. Do you hear that, ladies? The 3Ds. You don't get one today, you get three. The first one is deviance. Deviance typically means unusual or rare. So somebody with lots of piercings or tattoos who doesn't really follow those social norms can be considered deviant. However, just because somebody has a lot of tattoos and piercings, it doesn't mean that they're they have a mental disorder. It just means they like to look cool and you're just a hater. It's really all it is if you don't like it. So another form of deviant is somebody with extreme athletic ability. So people who go on to win the Olympics, they're not following social norms. That's really rare abilities to have, to be able to run super, super fast, because I can barely run to the bathroom. The second one is distress. Distress basically means what it sounds like, which is personal suffering. Distress is this is the criteria that encourages people to go seek help. They're tired of suffering, they're tired of feeling a certain way, and they want it to stop. They want to stop that distress, and they go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist or even just their primary care doctor. Distress or personal suffering isn't always an indicator for mental disorder. People who are homosexuals often feel distressed about coming out of the closet, even though, they shouldn't have to at this point. But they do, because they don't know how their family's going to take it. What about society? What if they get made fun of? All of these things are super distressing for that person. However, being homosexual isn't a mental disorder, at least not since 1973. The third one is dysfunction. Dysfunction is difficulty in fulfilling appropriate and or expected roles. So basically, if your emotional stress or your distress is so severe that you can't do anything as simple as bathing yourself, I think it's time to seek help. And for now, those are the 3Ds. You're welcome. So now that we got that kind of background of what's normal and abnormal out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some depressive disorders. The first one we're going to talk about is major depressive disorder, or MDD. This is the most common when thinking about depression, and when people typically refer to themselves as being depressed, this is typically what they're referring to. The symptoms of major depressive disorder are very well known. The loss of interest in enjoyable activities, common tasks such as bathing become ridiculously difficult. Eating habits change, sleeping problems, memory, concentration, delusions can be expected. Episodes of MDD may be single or multiple. They can last anywhere from weeks to months, with an average period of about 4 to 9 months. A cool fact is that 17% of people in North America and Europe experience major depression at least once in their lifetime. And this is reported. So that doesn't seem like a lot of people, but it kind of is. And once again, that's reported. Many people don't seek help because of, the stigma that I'm trying to fucking get rid of by making these stupid videos. And, I just want you to know that if you're out there and you don't want to go see somebody because you don't want to be labeled a little bitch or you don't want to be weak, you're not. And go talk to somebody. I promise you'll feel so much better. Next, we're going to talk about dysthymic disorder. This is a lesser severe form of depression. However, it typically lasts longer. All the symptoms of MDD are covered under it, but they're not as intense. Typically, people with this disorder, they feel all of everything that people with major depressive disorder, they just feel it for a lot longer. and sometimes it's not as intense. Next, we're going to talk about seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. SAD. I don't know if that was intended or not, but props to whoever did that. Most people's moods typically drop when it gets winter because it's, a lot colder and dark. However, with people with seasonal affective disorder, it's just a lot more intense, and it can switch between any season. This disorder results in depression when seasons change. People typically think of seasonal affective disorder in the sense of winter, like the sun goes away, which has a lot to do with it, and people get sad and they don't get enough vitamins and they're stuck inside all the time, and that kind of leads to depression. This doesn't have to be just winter. You have two types: wintertime and summertime. Wintertime SAD symptoms are like lethargia, daytime fatigue, weight gain, and reduced sexual interest, whereas summertime, you typically find difficulty sleeping, increased restlessness, and weight loss. The next couple we're going to talk about, they used to be considered their own disorders, but now they're linked in as subtypes of major depressive disorder. Catatonic depressive disorder is kind of determined by the lack of moving, literally. Like people tend to lay in bed for a long period of time, and it's not like that depression where you don't want to get up. It's like they don't move. They stay still. They typically stop talking. If they do talk, you can't really understand them. They have a lack of response to stimuli, and sometimes when they do move, they have really fast and abnormal movements. Next, we're going to talk about major depression with atypical features. The symptoms of this subtype are all the same of MDD. However, people with atypical features tend to start to feel better with positive news. I think a lot of people would find this as like, oh, they're just faking because all of a sudden they feel better. Like, no, like that's a symptom. Some other symptoms include extreme weight gain, not just a little bit, and body aches. A lot of people with this subtype also respond extremely negative to criticism and rejection. The next one is melancholic depression. Melancholic depression is kind of the opposite of atypical depression, as in they have lack of reactivity to good news. They have extreme weight loss, and they have that feelings of really inappropriate guilt that don't seem to make sense. They also find that people with melancholic depression subtype have their MDD symptoms tend to worsen in the morning. Next, we're going to talk about psychotic depression, which is another subtype, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is major depressive disorder with psychotic symptoms. This can be super severe and really troubling, not only for the person suffering, but everybody around them. They typically have hallucinations, delusions, and they tend to lose a lot of physical contact with reality. And sometimes people think like, oh, they must be schizophrenic. Well, not necessarily. We have to look at all symptoms. Then we have perinatal depression, which is a combination of prenatal and postpartum. Everybody's heard of postpartum depression, which is basically after you have the baby, people are extremely depressed. Their mood is all over the place. Prenatal depression is kind of the opposite. It happens during pregnancy, and there tends to be a lot of crying, like obsessive amounts of crying, and really poor fetal attachment, which then kind of probably puts them back in a cycle of depression, of prenatal depression, because they think they're a horrible mom because they're not attached to their fetus. But in reality, like their hormones are just out of whack. Everybody knows that pregnancy makes women go crazy because hormones, and you have something growing in you, which is honestly, personally to me, is gross, but whatever. Basically, this is the end of the video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned something about depression. I hope that it made you think. I hope that you got everything you could have ever wanted out of this video. I'm Mental Bear, and I still don't have a catchphrase. See you next time.